Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I am Christine Dixon of The Ordinary Sacred. And I realize there's a little bit of an echo in here, so I hope the sound is okay. I'm in our beautiful apartment that we're in here in Ecuador. And today I'm going to do part of my series that I call Come to the Library. I'm going to read an excerpt from this fantastic book, Listening When Parts Speak by Tamala Floyd. And it's kind of like a reaction video. I'm going to give you my take, my in the moment reactions to what I'm reading and maybe jumping off point for some teaching. But before I do that, I wanted to let you all know, in case you don't know, twice a month I offer free events. One is a teaching on Zoom, and the other is kind of an open forum question and answer time. And so I wanted to invite you if you want to come. A week ago, Thursday, I did the teaching on identifying and releasing cultural burdens, and that is up on YouTube. You can watch the recording of it. It's about 2 videos before this one. And but this coming Thursday, I believe it's October 24th, at 1 p.m. Central Time, 1 to 2:30 Central Time, so you can adjust that to your time zone and see if you can attend live. I wanted to just offer an open time. We'll probably check in with our parts, and then you can ask questions. If you're an IFS coach or therapist, you can ask questions about using the model with your clients or give case studies. If you are using the model on yourself, again, you can ask questions about the model, or you can even ask specific questions about your system and your parts, maybe roadblocks you're coming up against in your inner exploration, any questions that you have. And I will answer, and the group can answer as well. And for this one, however, I will not be putting it live on YouTube. I want it to be available to as many people as possible, because whenever we ask questions, it's beneficial to other people because they inevitably have similar questions. But in a setting like that, sometimes it can be really difficult for people their parts to be willing to come on camera, or even to let their voice be heard and to really interact with me in the group if they know that it's going to be broadcast to essentially the whole world at large. So I think what I'm going to do is put it behind the paywall of my all access pass, which is basically it's a $20 a month membership, and you get all of my my self-paced courses, my past workshops, meditations, worksheets. And so I want the Q&A to kind of be a part of that membership as well. So each month when I do the Q&A, if you can't attend live, or maybe you attended live and you want to watch the recording, you can do that. So I'm going to put a link in the description. I'm going to give you the Zoom link for the actual meeting on Thursday. If you want to come, it's completely free to attend live. But if you want to watch it back, or you want to access the all access pass, I'll put a link for that as well. And you can cancel it at any time. So you could have it for a month for $20 and then cancel if you want. But just wanted to invite you all to that. Okay. So if you haven't picked up this fabulous book yet, I highly recommend it. And it's amazing. Originally, when I was deciding, what excerpt do I want to read today from here, I at first thought, oh, I'm going to read, some of the case studies and vignettes of Tamala's clients. But what really resonated with me in this book, personally, was actually Tamala's explanation of her own parts. It felt like she is me, I am her. The parts that she developed are just so incredibly similar to my parts. So my system was like, yes, this is our experience. So I think I'll have a little bit more to react to. So I'm going to start today. I'm going to read a couple pages from the beginning of chapter 2, which is on page 23. And she's just talking about meeting parts, and she's starting with protective parts. And so she introduces essentially her people-pleasing part, spoiler alert. And, many of us, if we're conditioned, in the culture and wanted to survive childhood have some level of a people-pleasing part. It can be burdened to different degrees. Like maybe it comes out with certain people or in certain times or around certain topics. And some people especially people who've had abuse, can have a really, really big fawning part because we had to please the person in front of us in order to ultimately not be killed or not be hurt or harmed. It was about our safety, right? So that can be a big thing for many people. You may not have a people-pleasing part that's front and center. So you might, as I read this, you might think about other parts that might be, leading the show for you. But okay. Let us read, or let you listen, kick back, relax, and listen. So Carefree is the name she had before she became a people pleaser. When Carefree had not a care in the world, she had an easygoing manner that drew children and adults alike into her orbit, and she was only a child herself. She heard adults use words like full of life, creative, talkative, engaging, a joy to be around when speaking of her. The words sounded nice to her, and she also knew words didn't and couldn't fully capture her essence. She had an awareness that she was more than the words people used to describe her. She felt light and at home in her body. The world she lived in was exciting, limitless, full of possibilities. She awoke each day free of worry and fear. She possessed a knowing that she was the creator of her experience and the options were infinite. I absolutely love how Tamala chose to begin the story of this burdened part at the place where she was not burdened, because our parts do not come into the world burdened. They come into the world with naturally valuable qualities, with beautiful essence, with an understanding of their innate worth, their intuition, their connection to the body, to nature, full of life, as she says. So I love that she's describing this part the way it was, because it's not that we're trying to find ourselves in our authenticity. We're trying to return to it, to release the burdens that have taken the energy of all these parts, right? So that they can now return to their natural state. Okay, I'll keep going. The changes in Carefree did not happen at once. Yeah, my people-pleasing part, some of you know, named Cassandra, it's many, many layers. She wanted me to witness her experiences for about a year and a half. So it didn't happen at once. Life at home, school, and in her neighborhood chipped away at her. She came to learn that being herself was less valuable than being who people wanted her to be, and less safe, maybe. At first, she made little shifts to accommodate the expectations of others. With each change, no matter how insignificant it seemed at the time, Carefree became less and less of herself. Worry and fear crept into her existence. The light and comfortable feeling in her body became heavy and foreign. Instead of experiencing life as limitless and full of possibilities, it became finite with right and wrong choices and outcomes. Safety and certainty were no longer found within her, but were dependent on her meeting the needs and expectations of others. Can any of you identify with this? Right? It's really the loss of innocence, the loss of freedom, the loss of expansiveness, and the world becomes smaller and smaller. And this, there's a part that holds religious stories in me that's chiming in and saying, it reminds me of the story of the Garden of Eden and Eve eating from the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And how then that became in this this legend, essentially, it became the downfall right? And in essence, it's almost kind of what she's describing here, that there's this freedom, this expansiveness, this limitlessness, and then suddenly there's this finite knowledge of good and bad and right and wrong choices, and a fear and a constriction that really comes with that. Okay, I'll continue. Her easygoing, fun-loving energy was met with disapproving frowns and statements like, "You play too much," or "You need to take this seriously." Once Carefree no longer heard herself described as full of life and a joy to be around, but as dependable, responsible, the one you can count on, the transformation was complete. It's like her identity has shifted, right? Her sense of worth, her sense of, what's going to keep her safe in with her probably her authorities, her parents, teachers, peers, is I need to be, instead of being carefree and joyful and full of life, I need to be dependable and responsible and counted on. And that's ultimately what we're taught, right, as children, many of us. So ultimately, Carefree covered who she was to gain the approval of others and to be liked. So this is the story of how our parts get exiled, is the word in IFS, right? The push down the authentic nature because it's not accepted by our parents, teachers, peers, society, culture. And if we want to be accepted, which equals life to us as a child, right? We can't live without the approval of our parents. So we exile the parts of ourselves that are unacceptable. So Carefree is one of my parts, says Tamala, and I have distinct memories of who she was and how she moved through the world before she became burdened by the expectations of others. Her innate qualities were not nurtured and viewed as valuable. Instead, she got the message that she needed to change, which made her feel not good enough and misunderstood. She started to change and take on qualities that pleased those around her. The more people liked and approved of her, the further removed she was from her original nature. I very much identify with this. When I was before I was in school, my parts felt kind of unseen. I have a distinct memory when I was 5 and I was in kindergarten and it was recess and I was on the swing and I was actually on this horse that went back and forth like a swing. And I was singing, ice cream, you scream, we all scream for ice cream. And I just thought it was just the cutest, funnest song. So I just kept singing it over and over and over. And I remember one of the teachers came over and started singing it with me and was like, "Oh, Christine, that's such a cute song." And I was just shocked. I was like, "Wait, you see me? You hear me?" It really felt, I guess, unseen or unheard. And so it was the first time someone broke through and was like, I see you, I recognize you, right? And after that, of course, in school, people would see me and value me when I would cooperate and when I would get good grades and I would, just do well academically. So the way I used to describe it before I knew IFS was that I was addicted to the praise and the acknowledgement, the positive attention from teachers. So I got into this trap of this is who I have to be, no matter what. I can't be free, I can't be carefree, I can't be silly, I can't be social. I remember in second grade was when I was just chatting with a girl next to me, and I remember being so happy and playful and carefree, and just getting scolded and yelled at by the teacher. "Christine, stop talking, do your math work," right? And thinking, oh, okay, I can't be social, I can't be bubbly, I can't be carefree. Excuse me. Something got in my throat there. So again, just gradually learning that and gradually learning that I did get approval, affirmation, signals of worth when I was responsible, got good grades, and all of those things. Here, let me mute. Wait, where's okay? I needed to cough, and I didn't want to cough again into the microphone. Okay. Um, there's a couple more paragraphs. So Tamala goes on and says, the burden of pleasing others while denying myself is one that I still struggle with. Although I people please a lot less, I still have the desire to be liked, which makes sense. We all do. When I am being myself, the part that wants people to like me wonders, am I doing enough? Am I enough? Will people like me if I show them who I really am? When I was a child and I received praise for being likable, I didn't know any other way to be. I wasn't seeking approval. I was just being me. The freedom to truly be who I am, with no care about being liked or not, is what I seek. I wrote in the margin, me too. And I think, that's what we talked about in the cultural burdens workshop about we get domesticated into this is right or wrong. This is how you have to be accepted in your culture, in your subculture, in your family, with your peers. And we exile and abdicate the real true parts of ourselves. I remember when people used to talk about authenticity and be authentic, I thought, what does that even mean? What is that? Right? Because I was just so controlled by parts who just told me what I should or shouldn't do in every given moment. I had no connection to my authenticity. I began to learn later that what authenticity means is just following your genuine, what we talked about a little bit in the last video, your attraction response, right? Your body's natural, yes, I want to do this, and your natural, no, I don't want to do that, right? I would override that over and over again by saying yes when my authenticity was saying no, or saying no to something where my authenticity was to say yes, right? Like, oh, I shouldn't eat another piece of cake, even though my body's like, yes, I want that, right? So my authenticity might be to eat the cake, but I have a manager that says, no, that's bad, that's too much, so that comes in priority. Or maybe the people pleaser part is the one who often overrides the no. She holds the yes. She says, and once I learned to listen to my body, someone would ask me to do something and my whole body would be saying no. And I would watch my Cassandra override and say, yes. The other parts are sitting there going, and we would say on the outside to the person, yes, this actually happened a little bit the other day. It doesn't happen in really big ways anymore, but it was kind of funny. We were eating at a Turkish restaurant here in Ecuador, and my husband and I both lived in Turkey in the past, so it was really fun. We were speaking Turkish with the owner, and then there was this little film crew from the university nearby, and they were doing a little film about his restaurant. And I'm learning Spanish, and I'm maybe intermediate, but not great. And they came over to me and they asked if they could do an interview with me. And my husband, Brian, was sitting next to me, and he said he just watched me say, yes, oh, sure, I'll do an interview with you. And he thought, oh, okay. I guess he's like, I totally believed you. I believe that you really wanted to do this. I told him later, yeah, no, that was Cassandra. She didn't want to displease these people. And I didn't have too much backlash after because I froze. I didn't understand the questions. I struggled to speak in Spanish and answer the questions, which normally I would have a huge inner critic afterward, just telling me how terrible I am. But my inner critics weren't too active because they thought, well, I'll never see the recording. They probably won't even use my interview anyway because it was so terrible. Nobody will see it. It's all good. Um, but it was so funny how my husband says, yeah, I saw Cassandra take over your body and say, sure, I'll do it. So, it still happens sometimes, but for the most part, I'm really, Cassandra actually took the longest, is the part that has taken the longest to unburden because she was so dominant in my system. And like I said, I witnessed her for a year and a half, which just means that I asked, and it's fascinating too, because Tamala, when she describes Carefree, it's kind of like she's a protector and an exile, right? So she had it's just true of all of our parts. I mean, all of our parts are just parts, but it's like they were one thing before they were burdened. And then so the difference between a protector and an exile really is that the protector is doing a job. So my people pleaser, Cassandra, and Carefree is taking on this job to do the right thing, to be responsible, to please the people in front of us. And so it's definitely got a job, but it's still an inner child that is, and so her carefree qualities are also exiled, right? She's not able to show those things anymore because they're unacceptable on the outside. So in some ways, she's both an exile and a protector. And that's exactly the experience that I've had with my Cassandra, my people-pleasing part. And she presents as 6 years old. But she's shown me all kinds of experiences all through my life. So when I went to her and I said, just ask the question, what do you want me to know about your experience? She was like, oh, let me tell you, let me show you. And she started showing me experiences from, being very, very young and learning that she couldn't, that she was a crybaby or she couldn't show her authentic emotions. She needed to shut that off to please the people in front of her. She needed to not be social. She needed to not be carefree, not be silly, not be loud, not be this, not be that, right? So people pleasing really is ultimately about exiling many parts of ourselves, right? So that was her job, and so she showed me moment after moment after moment. And someone asked me, they were like, you spent every hour of every day for a year and a half witnessing her. I was like, no, it wasn't like that. It was more maybe like a couple times a week. I would meet with her and I would say, is there anything else you want me to know? You want me to see? And she would show me more and more. And I would also notice her being burdened regularly because again, she was very dominant protector in my life. So with everybody in my life, she was a people pleaser. For example, my husband kind of has people pleasing parts toward me and toward like the people he's closest to, but not toward anybody else. My Cassandra was so burdened that she felt like she had to please any and everybody in front of her. Right? When the people came into the Turkish restaurant to do the recording, they asked my husband, and he was like, "Oh no." He had no problem saying, no, I cannot do that. But my people pleaser is like, whoever's in front of me asking me for anything, I cannot say no. I must please the person in front of me, no matter who they are. So there's a lot of burdening there. So that means that she would get activated. And really what would happen is when she couldn't please the person in front of me, big critics would come in, parts that held deep shame and worthlessness would come up. And so there would be like a lot of activation, particularly when she couldn't fulfill her job as desperately as she tried to please the person in front of me. If they weren't pleased anyway, there was a lot of activation in my system. So I had lots of opportunities. I always say, you only need to deal with whatever's in front of you right now, right? So she and the parts she exiled and the critics, they're all related. It's all system, right? They would get activated regularly. And so there was always an opportunity to go toward them and say, okay, what else do you need me to know about how you got burdened? And she told me, in these different times throughout the week, For a year and a half, I would keep asking, is there anything else? Yes. And she showed me again, different times all through my life. I mean, probably thousands of incidents where she had to compromise our authenticity. Or like one of the earlier ones, for example, was when I was 3 and I was at my aunt's wedding. And I remember this very well. And I've gone back into that moment with her and stuff. But I was wearing this blue dress. It was an outdoor wedding. And my uncle, my little 3-year-old body had an aversion response to my uncle, my new uncle. It was just like, ooh, no, no. And I remember my parents and grandparents and everybody was saying, you need to kiss your uncle. We want to get a picture of you kiss it just on the cheek, just kissing the uncle on the cheek. And I said no. I was very connected to my no in that moment, my own boundaries. I knew I had an aversion response. The answer is no. And they just kept saying, come on, come on, come on, Christine, come on, don't do this. Don't be a baby. Don't be difficult. Didn't work. They started threatening, you're going to be in a timeout or like different things if you don't do this. And I kept saying no. And it was finally actually the bribe that broke me. My aunt came in with a candy bar and said, if you give him a kiss on the cheek, we will give you a candy bar. I was like, okay. So they finally broke me. I went against my body compass. I went against my authenticity, against my aversion response, overrode my no, and said yes. And that's how it can be. Is there's a lot of pressure from the culture, from our parents and teachers and families and peers. If you don't say yes to us, we will hound you and punish you, and will offer you rewards if you say yes. And it's no wonder we begin to override our body compass. And then moment after moment after moment of doing this, we totally lose connection to what our authentic yes and no actually is. So returning to that is number one. But then we still need to unburden the people pleasing part, because like I said, later I would feel the aversion response. I was aware of it, and I would watch Cassandra override it. Yes. Like I knew in that moment that I really did not want to do the interview. I didn't feel comfortable or confident doing it, but she did override it, right? And so, and there used to be just really, really big things like I am just collapsed and sick and cannot do anything. And someone asks me to do something for them, and I say yes when it makes no sense. I absolutely can't do it. And of course, my body would collapse, and my body would have to say no for me, because Cassandra, the main protector on, driving the bus, was not able to say no. So in order to create a legitimate no to be in alignment with my authenticity, my body would break down in illness and pain and all kinds of things. So I really think actually, because I'm in perimenopause, that during perimenopause, it's like those protective parts job just cannot work anymore. The body is done. The body is like, no, no, no. But it's a beautiful invitation to come back into alignment with our authenticity. It's like the body's like, I will not let you say yes to what is an authentic no for you anymore. And when we begin to do that, when we begin to be in alignment with our own worth, our own needs, our own desires, listening to the attraction response, the aversion response, and living in alignment with it, our bodies are healthy. Our bodies are, we rest when we need to rest. We play when we want to play. We are in relationship with who we want to be in relationship. We're in the environments we want to be in. We're doing work we want to do. And just a second, my body's wanting to cough. I think it's dry here. I'm not sick. I don't have a cough, or I mean, I do have a cough, but it's just dry, I think. So, so Yeah, it's our bodies tell us, like it just told me, oh, I need to cough. Okay. I need some water. Okay. And we're just in each moment listening to our body, giving it what it needs, and then it doesn't need to collapse and it doesn't need to say no. Um, Actually, there's one more little paragraph here. Let me read it. Um, let's see. Yeah. I wasn't seeking approval. I was just being me, the freedom to truly be who I am with no care about being liked or not is what I seek. That's what we need in order. There has to be a security on the inside in order to not let the outside dictate what we do or don't do. And I'm having a part right now that wants to say, because early on, this was really hard for me, like self-love, self-care, listening to my own needs was really hard because there was a huge religious and cultural burden that was selfish, right? That if I cared for myself, then I'd be putting myself above other people and I would be a hedonist, I would be harmful to other people. I did an experiment with those parts initially, and I said, okay, let's pretend that we love ourselves for a week and see what happens. So they needed evidence that that wasn't going to happen. So I gave that to them. But what I've realized is that when I override myself to give to other people, inevitably then there are other parts inside of me that are very resentful. And I can't have genuine overflowing relationship with another person when I'm not considered in the relationship, because a relationship always takes two people. And if I'm not caring for myself, then I'm expecting other people to anticipate my needs and care for me. And that becomes a problem as well. But I am the most highly equipped to care for my own needs. And so if I'm filling my cup, giving to myself, then I am stable and secure. And now I can give from overflow to other people. So when I'm needy, when I have, which I love Marshall Rosenberg's idea, which I think is true, is my experience as well, that as humans, we naturally want to give to other people, but only from overflow. If we don't want to give to someone, it's because our needs are unmet. So we need to meet our own needs first, and then we can give from overflow. So when someone's grasping another person and it actually looks like they're selfish, quote unquote, it's actually because their needs are so unmet and they don't feel worthy or they're not giving to themselves enough that they have to grasp at other people. But if and when I give to myself and my needs are met, so when my needs aren't met, it's like I'm turned in like this, like I can't see anybody else and I can't consider them. It's very hard. But when I'm pouring into myself and saying no to things so that I can take care of myself and give myself what I need to feel healthy and secure, then I'm like this. I'm secure. I'm like a deeply rooted tree. And now I can offer my branches to other people very freely. And I can say, oh, let me see what you need. Do you need something? But I'm not giving at the expense of myself. And doing that doesn't mean that I'm putting myself above other people. It means I'm making myself equal to other people and understanding that the person who's the most highly equipped to meet the needs of the person inside my body is me. There are times when I can't meet my own needs and I need to ask someone for help, and that's completely fine too. But I first need to check, is this something that I can meet for myself? If the answer is no, say I'm really ill or I'm having just a nervous breakdown, just really, really activated, and I can seek help from another person. But if they say no, it's not about me and my worth. It just means they have a competing need. So I don't want someone to give to me at the expense of themselves in that situation. I actually want them to give to me from overflow. So if they can't give to me in freedom, in natural desire to give to me because they're secure, I don't want them to give to me. I need to change my strategy to another person, right? So we always need to be checking, or I've learned that I always need to check, if I can't say yes without resentment, then I need to say no. It's the kindest thing, not just to me, but to the other person. I just have a competing need. But again, it was so important to unburden my Cassandra, my people pleaser, because she genuinely believed that if she said no to the other person, she would die. And she's more recently explained that now she's less afraid of the person outside of me and more afraid of my big inner critics, that they are going to wreak havoc if she says no. So done a lot of work with the inner critics now and helping them that have a lot of those. So it's all connected. I still haven't read the last paragraph. Okay. And she says, who is the I speaking in the paragraph you just read? Is it me or is it carefree? Is the me that is me separate from the me that is carefree? So she's kind of getting kind of philosophical here. But she says, that paragraph was from Carefree's perspective when she says, the freedom to truly be who I am with no care about being liked or not is what I seek. That's what Carefree is seeking, returning to our authenticity. The self, the Tamala's true self, is already there, already knows their worth. So she says, this is her experience. She says, but we are not separate. She is a part of me. I view my parts and the parts of the people I work with as individual humans with feelings, ideas, beliefs, life experiences. And this is something that, early on, Dick Schwartz would talk about that was kind of strange for me, but I've grown into, I guess I had skeptical parts that thought it was kind of weird to think of a part as like it's a whole human, like whole humans inside of a human, right? It felt kind of strange, but I've since learned that that's really what they are in my experience, and that approaching them and treating them that way is the most useful. That my Cassandra is like a whole human unto herself. And so honoring her and respecting her is paramount. It is important to mention that I like this note. She says, it's important to mention that our parts may or may not appear as we do. For instance, some of our parts share our gender, racial identities, and sexual orientation, while other parts do not. You will see later in one of my opening vignettes that I have male identified parts, although I identify as female. I too have male identified parts. I also have non-binary parts. I have parts that appear just kind of as an energy that's really, again, just no gender. So, but I have some that are absolutely male, several, and I identify as female. So it's all good. Viewing parts as the sub-personalities they are helps me to better relate to my parts and the parts of others. Yes, yes. However, when Carefree is in my seat of consciousness, my experience of the world is from her perspective. Carefree is the part of me that still carries some of the people-pleasing burden and desires to return to her unburdened state. Yes, very well said, Tamala. Beautiful. Yeah, it is so helpful, again, to see the parts as these complete sub-personalities or like kind of little humans inside of us. And I like how she said it helps her with relating to her own parts and also the parts of other people. So, for example, my husband and I were having a conversation yesterday morning about finances. And it was so helpful for me to explain to him, and he knows these parts quite well now, and for him to relate and understand that I have parts who have very different experiences and perspectives. So he was saying, okay, I know that you have a part that desperately wants you to make money and wants you to have security and that fears not having enough. And I know that you have a part that really just wants to be taken care of and not have to hustle, for money or anything like that. But then I also know that you have a part who wants to work for the purpose and the meaning that it gives you. And he was saying, and I know that part wants to make your own money. And I was like, oh, no, no, that part's different. The part that wants meaning is here. The part that needs money for security is a different part, and it's here. This one can have meaning without money, and it's totally fine. But this one needs to make money, and this one just wants to be completely free. And so he's able to say, okay, all your parts make sense, and I want all your parts to know I value them, I appreciate them, I love them. And that meant so much. It was really like this whole family inside of me was like, oh, like he sees that we're all individual, and we're actually competing with each other quite a bit. Um, but he accepts all of us. You know what I mean? So it's really wonderful to have a partner that accepts all the different parts of you, sees them, recognizes them, doesn't feel like you're crazy because you're like, but this, but this, but this, and you're kind of inconsistent, recognizes that you can have many parts like that. Okay. Thanks for listening. If you are still here listening to this, uh, I think it's fascinating. I love to teach about these parts. And so if you want to share at all in the comments about if you have a people-pleasing part, or if you related to anything I was talking about or Tamala was talking about, share that in the comments, or maybe you have a question that came up as I was talking. Feel free to share that as well. And if you're able to come to the Q&A, the live Q&A on Thursday, I would love to see you. So I'll see you on Thursday, or I'll see you next time.